You know what finally made me feel a little foolish in my own shop? I had just finished setting up a $500 miter saw, nice unit, sliding compound, laser guide, dust collection bag that never quite catches everything. And I was cross-cutting a piece of cherry for a jewelry box lid. The blade spun up, I made the cut, and when I looked at the edge, it was fine, perfectly acceptable. Then a friend of mine, a guy who had spent time working alongside a Japanese timber framer, handed me a pull saw he'd picked up for about $15, a Ryoba. He said, "Try it on the other end of that same board." I did. And when I held those two cut faces side by side, I honestly didn't know what to say. The face from that little hand saw was smoother, cleaner, and the kerf was so thin I almost couldn't find it. That was the moment I started paying attention. Today I'm going to walk you through exactly why that simple pull saw does what it does, the physics behind it, and what it can teach us about cutting wood more accurately with less waste and less noise. Plus, stick around to the end, because I'll show you a starting technique I learned that completely eliminates that wandering first stroke most of us fight with. Let's get into it. The Ryoba is one of the most common saws in the Japanese woodworking tradition, and it has been refined over centuries into something that is deceptively simple. It looks like not much. A thin blade, a wooden or wrapped handle, teeth on both edges. But the engineering behind it is so sound that once you understand it, you start to question some assumptions you've carried around the shop for decades. So let me take you through what I found, starting with where this tool comes from and why it deserves your attention. Japanese woodworking has roots going back well over 1,000 years. The oldest surviving wooden structures in the world are in Japan. Horyuji Temple near Nara was built in the 7th century, and parts of its original timber framing are still standing. That's not an accident. Japanese craftsmen developed their tools and techniques in a country covered in forests, but regularly shaken by earthquakes and battered by typhoons. They couldn't afford to waste material. Lumber was precious, especially the slow-growing hinoki cypress and sugi cedar they favored for fine work. Every cut mattered, every shaving had a cost. And here's the thing that shifted my thinking. Their entire tool philosophy is built around the pull stroke. Where Western woodworking evolved around pushing a saw, pushing a plane, pushing a chisel with a mallet, Japanese craftsmen pull. They pull the saw toward their body. They pull the plane toward themselves. And that one decision, pulling instead of pushing, created a completely different relationship with the tool and the material. It's not a cultural quirk or an aesthetic preference. It's physics. And when you understand the physics, everything else about the Ryoba starts to make sense. So let's start with the most fundamental difference. When you push a Western saw through wood, the blade is in compression. You're shoving a relatively thick steel plate forward, and that plate wants to buckle. It wants to flex sideways. To prevent that, Western saws need a thicker blade, sometimes a stiffening spine along the back, and more set to the teeth so the kerf is wide enough that the blade doesn't bind. A typical Western back saw has a blade thickness around 0.03 inches, and the tooth set creates a kerf of about 0.04 to 0.05 inches. A power miter saw with a standard 10-inch carbide blade cuts a kerf around 1/8 of an inch, which is 0.125 inches. Now here's what happens with a pull saw. When you pull the Ryoba toward you, the blade goes into tension. Think of it like a piece of string. You can't push a piece of string, it just crumples. But you can pull it perfectly straight with almost no effort. That's what's happening with the Ryoba blade. Because the cutting force pulls the steel taut, the blade doesn't need to resist buckling. It doesn't need to be thick. It doesn't need a spine. The tension does all the work of keeping the blade straight and true in the cut. This is why a Ryoba blade can be as thin as 0.012 inches. Some are even thinner. The tooth set is minimal because the blade isn't fighting itself. The result is a kerf that's typically around 0.022 inches. Compare that to the 1/8 inch kerf from a miter saw. You're removing about 1/6 of the material, 1/6. On a 10-inch wide board, That difference might not seem like much, but across a project with dozens of cuts, or when you're working with expensive figured wood, that savings adds up fast. I was working on a small cabinet last year using some quilted maple that cost me about $40 a board foot. Every time I made a cut on the miter saw, I was turning almost 1/8 inch of that beautiful wood into sawdust. When I switched to the Ryoba for the smaller cross cuts, I could actually feel the difference in my wallet. By the way, if you are enjoying learning about these ancient methods, I put together something I think you will really appreciate. It is called Kenji's Workshop, and it is a collection of 100 ancient Eastern woodworking secrets for the modern craftsman, techniques like the ones we are covering today, and a whole lot more. You can grab your copy by scanning the QR code on screen, or just use the first link in the description. All right, let us keep going. Now here's something that most people don't realize when they first pick up a Ryoba. It has 2 completely different sets of teeth, one on each edge of the blade. One side is cross-cut teeth, designed to sever wood fibers across the grain. The other side is rip teeth, designed to chisel out material along the grain. 2 saws in one tool, and you just flip it over depending on what you need. The cross-cut side typically has anywhere from 18 to 28 teeth per inch, depending on the saw. Those teeth are shaped like tiny knives, angled to slice across the grain cleanly, without tearing. The rip side has fewer teeth, usually around 8 to 12 per inch, and those teeth are shaped more like little chisels that scoop out material as you pull. When I first used the rip side on a piece of white oak to cut a tenon cheek, I was surprised at how quickly it moved through the wood. I'd always assumed hand sawing was slow work, but because the blade is so thin and the teeth are so efficiently shaped, the Ryoba rips faster than I expected. Not miter saw fast, obviously, but fast enough that for joinery cuts, I stopped reaching for the power tool. The accuracy and the clean surface made it worth the extra few seconds. And the beauty is the weight. A Ryoba weighs about 7 ounces. You can hang it on a nail on the wall. You can toss it in a bag and take it to a job site. There's no cord, no dust collection, no blade guard, no fence to calibrate. You just pick it up and cut. This brings me to something that really opened my eyes. The surface quality straight off the Ryoba is unlike anything I've gotten from a power saw without additional work. When a miter saw blade spins through wood at around 4,000 revolutions per minute, each carbide tooth is taking a tiny scalloped bite. Even on a quality blade with 80 or 96 teeth, those scallops are there. You can feel them if you run your fingertip across the end grain. Usually you hit that face with some sandpaper before a glue-up and call it good. The Ryoba leaves a different kind of surface because each tooth is slicing through the fibers in one controlled direction, pulled by your hand at a speed you can feel and adjust. The cut face is remarkably clean. On a fine cross-cut side with 24 teeth per inch, cutting through something like cherry or hard maple, the surface comes off almost burnished. I held a cut face up to a raking light once, and I could barely see any tooth marks. It looked like it had been planned. For glue joints especially, this matters. A smoother mating surface means better glue contact, thinner glue lines, and a stronger bond. I've started using the Ryoba for final trimming on tenon shoulders, specifically because the surface quality is that much better than what I get from a machine cut. Now let me talk about something that's harder to quantify but just as important: control. When you stand over a miter saw and pull the handle down, you're relying on the fence, the blade alignment, the calibration of the miter detent, and a spinning blade that's doing all the decision-making in a fraction of a second. You set it up, you commit, and you hope everything was dialed in. With the Ryoba, you are the guidance system. Your hand, your eye, your body position, they're all feeding you information on every single stroke. You can see the line. You can feel the resistance. If the saw starts to drift, you notice on the second stroke, not after the cut is made. I use a marking knife to score my cut line, and then I start the Ryoba right in that scored groove. The teeth drop into that little valley, and the saw tracks beautifully. No laser guide needed. No test cuts on scrap. Just a knife line and a pull saw, and I'm hitting my marks within a few thousandths of an inch. For dovetails, for tenon shoulders, for any cut where precision matters more than speed, I haven't found anything in my shop that gives me more consistent accuracy. And here's something I don't hear anyone talk about. You can actually hear and feel the cut, telling you what's happening. With a power saw, the motor noise drowns out everything. But with a Ryoba, the sound changes depending on what the saw is encountering. When you're cutting cleanly through straight grain, there's this quiet, rhythmic whisper. It's almost musical. When you hit a knot or a change in grain direction, the pitch shifts. You can feel a slight catch or a change in resistance through the handle. Once you learn to read those signals, you start adjusting your stroke length, your pressure, your angle, all in real time. You're having a conversation with the wood, and the saw is translating. I know that sounds like I'm getting poetic about a $15 hand tool, but I mean it practically. That feedback prevents mistakes. It prevents tear out at the back of a crosscut. It prevents the saw from diving below your line on a tenon cheek. You're in control the entire time because you can feel what's happening at the teeth. Let me share some patterns I've noticed over the years, things I used to do myself, that this tradition handles completely differently. No judgment here. I did all of these for longer than I'd like to admit. The first pattern is reaching for a power saw on every crosscut, regardless of the situation. Most of us do it because the miter saw is sitting right there, it's fast, and it feels like the professional choice. But I've timed myself on cuts under 3 inches wide. By the time I walk to the miter saw, check the fence, line up the mark, make the cut, and clean up the dust, I could have made the same cut with the Ryoba right at my bench. Faster, cleaner, and no sawdust cloud. For small to medium crosscuts, the power saw is often solving a problem that doesn't exist. The second pattern is accepting sawdust as an unavoidable cost. I used to treat kerf waste the way most of us do, as just part of the process. But when you work with a saw that removes 1/6 the material, you suddenly realize how much wood you've been throwing away. On a project with 50 crosscuts, switching to a Ryoba can save you the equivalent of several inches of material depending on your board widths. With expensive hardwoods, that's real money. The third pattern is sanding every cut face before joinery. Because the miter saw leaves those micro scallops, we've trained ourselves to follow every cut with sandpaper. The Ryoba's cross-cut face is often clean enough to glue directly, not always, and I'd still check each one. But more often than not, you can skip that sanding step and go straight to assembly. That saves time and reduces the risk of rounding over a crisp shoulder. The fourth pattern is assuming that accuracy requires expensive equipment. I spent a long time believing that precise cuts required precise machines. And for certain operations, that's absolutely true. I'm not selling my table saw. But the Ryoba taught me that a sharp hand saw, a good marking knife, and a steady hand can deliver accuracy that matches or beats a miter saw on joinery cuts. The tool doesn't have to be expensive or complicated to be precise. It just has to be well designed and well used. The good news is, once you see these patterns for what they are, you can start shifting your approach one project at a time. Nobody's saying throw away your power tools. I'm just saying there's a $15 saw that deserves a spot on your bench next to them. Now, for that bonus tip I promised at the beginning. This is the technique that eliminated my biggest frustration with hand sawing, that first stroke, where the blade skips and wanders across your line before it finally bites. Here's what I learned from watching a Japanese craftsman. You don't start a cut with a full stroke. You start with 3 short, light pull strokes using only the teeth nearest the handle. Place the blade right at your knife line, lift the handle slightly so only about 2 inches of teeth near the heel are touching the wood, and pull gently toward you 3 times. Short strokes. Almost no downward pressure, just let the weight of the blade do the work. Those 3 strokes establish a tiny groove, a kerf starter, right on your line. Once that groove is set, you lower the handle to level and begin your full-length strokes. The blade drops into that channel and tracks perfectly. I've been using this 3-stroke start for about 2 years now, and I cannot remember the last time a cut wandered on me. It takes about 3 seconds, and it's the difference between a saw that feels unpredictable and a saw that feels like a precision instrument. Such a small thing. Nobody taught me this in any Western woodworking class, but it works every single time. One more thing before I let you go. I spent a long time gathering the best ancient Eastern woodworking methods I have come across, and I put them all into a book called Kenji's Workshop. 100 techniques that most modern woodworkers have never seen, with step-by-step photos and clear explanations you can actually follow in your shop. Scan the QR code on screen right now, or grab it from the first link in the description. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next one.